Hello everyone. In this lecture video, we're going to discuss ending poverty in regards to the role that the education and employment policies played in this initiative. Poverty is a word we hear often, yet its definition and the solutions to address it are far from agreed upon. As you will see in this video, poverty is not a simple issue. It is a complex problem with many causes. How we define poverty impacts the policies and programs designed to address it. Whether we focus on economic inequality, lack of education, systematic discrimination, or other factors, our perspective shapes how we approach solutions. So, in this next couple of slides, we will explore the policies and strategies that aim to reduce poverty and create lasting change. So, defining poverty is more of a political activity than a rationale exercise. The various differences of poverty, whether as deprivation, inequality, lack of human capital, culture, exploitation, or structural limitation, shape the policies designed to alleviate it. The way in which poverty is defined has significant implications for strategies aimed at reducing the problem. So, despite efforts over the decades, Americans have yet to agree on a universal approach to defining and addressing poverty. Before we discuss solutions to poverty, we need to understand how it is defined. Poverty is more than just a lack of money. It is shaped by social, economic, and political factors. So there are simple perspectives on what causes poverty, and each perspective influences policy decisions. So let's look at 6 key perspectives on poverty and some examples as well for these perspectives. So number one, deprivation, lack of basic needs. So the first perspective defines poverty as deprivation, lack of basic necessities of life, such as food, shelter, and healthcare. So when people cannot meet these fundamental needs, their quality of life is severely impacted, and survival becomes the primary focus. One of the most visible examples of deprivation is the homeless crisis in the major US cities. In places like Los Angeles and New York, thousands of people live on the streets in shelters or in their cars because they cannot afford housing. Rising rents, mental health struggles, and job loss contribute to this crisis, making it clear that poverty is not just about income, but also about access to stable living conditions. Next, inequality. So, when we're looking at inequality, the gap between rich and poor, this is another way to define poverty. It's by looking at the inequality, the growing divide between the rich and the poor. Even as the economy grows, wealth is not distributed evenly, which leaves many struggling while a small percentage accumulates massive wealth. So, for example, the top 1% of American culture, approximately 32% of the culture's wealth. This means that while some families thrive with multiple homes, stocks, investment, and financial security, millions of others live paycheck to paycheck. So, economic policies like tax structures and access to high paying jobs contribute to the widening gap, making it harder for low income individuals to climb that economic ladder. Then we have lack of human capital for number three. So this is a third perspective which focuses on education and experience a person needs to succeed in the workforce. So, without proper education and training, individuals struggle to secure stable employment. High school dropouts experience significantly higher unemployment rates, and then they also with their college degrees as well. Many well-paying jobs require specialized skills, certification, or degrees, leaving those without them stuck in low-paying or unstable work. This lack of human capital creates a cycle where individuals remain in poverty because they cannot access the opportunities needed to escape. Number five, we're talking about culture of poverty. So some argue that poverty is a cycle passed from one generation to the next. This idea, known as the culture of poverty, suggests that growing up in a low income environment shapes attitudes and behavior that make it harder to break free from poverty. So children raised in poverty often struggle to escape it in adulthood. If parents have low-paying jobs, limited education, or rely on government assistance, their children may grow up without the resources or role model to achieve economic stability. This can lead to a cycle where poverty persists across generations, making it difficult for families to improve their circumstances. Number six is exploitation. So, another perspective on poverty focuses on economic exploitation. Some believe that the economic system is designed to benefit the wealthy while keeping low income individuals in low wage jobs with little opportunity to advance. Many corporations make record profit while paying workers low wages. Despite rising costs of living, wages for many workers have remained stagnant, making it harder for them to afford necessities like housing and healthcare. Meanwhile, corporate executives and shareholders continue to accumulate wealth, highlighting the imbalance in our economic gains, how our economic gains are distributed. Number seven, structural causes. So finally, structural causes of poverty points to systematic barriers that prevent certain groups from achieving financial stability. Discrimination in housing, education, and unemployment plays a major role in keeping poverty rates high among marginalized communities. Redlining, a discriminatory housing policy, historically prevent Black families from buying homes in certain neighborhoods. As a result, many were denied the opportunity to build generational wealth through home ownership. Today, these past policies still affect economic opportunities, with Black and Hispanic families facing higher poverty rates and lower home ownership rates than white families or European families. Now, when we're looking at the US poverty trends by official government measures, poverty has declined significantly since the Great Depression, but we've never quite returned to the historic lows of the 1970s. And while poverty affects all groups, it disproportionately impacts Blacks and Hispanics communities, households led by women, and most alarmingly, children. So the impact we can look at with COVID, where economic crises have a direct impact on poverty. So the Great Recession of 2008 led to a job loss and stagnant wages. And the COVID-19 pandemic pushed unemployment rates to new heights. So while the government responded with temporary relief measures, the long-term effects remain uncertain. And then there's food insecurity. So the federal government's main food assistance program is SNAP, formerly known as the food stamps, has expanded and contracted over the years. But the debate continues. How much hunger truly exists in America? What are we doing and are we doing enough to address it? One thing is clear, poverty has become more visible, especially throughout homelessness. While government programs aim to provide aid, many advocates argue that prevention, such as affordable housing and rapid rehousing, should be the priority. But there's another crisis, affordable housing. Efforts have focused more on increasing home ownership rather than providing much needed rental assistance. Meanwhile, long waiting lists leave many without options. When it comes to solutions, opinions are divided. So conservatives argue that public assistance programs discourage self-sufficiency. They support policies aimed at reducing dependency on welfare. Meanwhile, liberals push for increasing the minimum wage, expanding tax credits, and improving access to education and childcare as pathways out of poverty. Welfare reform was a major focus of the Clinton administration and later the Bush administration, but fluctuations in poverty rates often align more closely with the economy's ups and down with changes in welfare policies. Education that has, long been seen as a way to break the cycle of poverty, and federal involvement has grown. But that involvement hasn't been without controversy. Programs like No Child Left Behind and Common Core standards have sparked debate about government overreach and the true quality of education in America. Job training programs have also been a focus, from initiative launched during the war on poverty to more recent efforts like the Workforce Investment Act. But despite billions of dollars spent, questions remain about their effectiveness. At the heart of this debate are two fundamental questions. Number one, what kind of society do we want to build? Number two, do we focus on personal responsibility or do we invest in systematic solutions? The answer, as always, is political. But one thing is certain, poverty is not just a statistic. It's a reality for millions of Americans. And the way we define it determines the future we create.